My name's Bill Powell. I'm originally from North Carolina. Spent a little bit over 20 years in the military. Retired in Montana, where I started ranching. And this story is going to be about the horses I raised. I decided when I was going to get out of the military that my family had raised and trained Tennessee walkers in North Carolina and pacers and trotters, and my father had actually trained professionally and had some world records in pacers and trotters. So I didn't want to interfere with any of my cousins on training horses, so I started training quarter horses there. Started off, my wife bought me a horse for Christmas because she saw how good I was with a friend of ours' horse that he was training. And you don't buy a horse for someone else. The horse that she picked out didn't fit my personality, and I was very unhappy with it. So I ended up owning 42 horses and raising horses and having stud horses. And I'm going to tell you a story about my horse Classy. Classy was a medicine hat paint that I used to race endurance races against the Arabs. And we were number one in the heavyweight class in Montana, and I was racing in the Governor's Cup. Well, he was a stud horse, but he was so well behaved, I'd raised him as a baby. And so we're riding along next with this girl that was competing, and she kept talking about these idiots that would bring studs to the endurance races and how they would ruin the whole race. They wouldn't behave, they wouldn't this. And we had rode for 12 and a half miles because they do a health inspection check every 12 and a half miles. And we stopped, and she was talking about how well behaved my gelding was, and I hadn't said anything. And so the veterinarian came up and he goes, "Wow, Bill, that stud of yours is really doing great." Said his heart beats perfect and everything else. And I said, "Yeah." And she, of course, looked at me and she goes, "He's a stud horse?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "It isn't a matter of the horse misbehaving, it's a matter of the rider not understanding his horse and knowing how to train him." I said, "This horse, when people come to breed him, knows that the only time he's allowed to breed is when he has his breeding halter on. And when he goes up to the mare, he'll put both feet out in front of him and bow down, and people are impressed with that." And she was like, "Wow, I can't believe that." She goes, "I rode 12 and a half miles with you. My mare's in heat, and your horse doesn't even pay attention to her." And I thought it was very funny. My grandfather had always taught me that the safest horse in any trail ride or anywhere you go is a stud, because other horses automatically respect him and they're not going to misbehave. So if your horse doesn't misbehave, you're the safest person there. And I kind of lived by that. When we were raising horses in Montana, I claim it was my first date with my beautiful wife Donna, who's standing out there right now. But a friend of mine had bred over my horse, so his mare had trouble foaling. Well, he was going to be out of town. Her and I went to the mare to see how she was doing, and she was, of course, having the colt. So I knew she was a keeper because rather than worrying about her being all dolled up, she got right in there with me and helped me foal the colt. I cut the umbilical cord, dipped it in iodine, and that was our date. I think it was our first date. She claims it was second or third, but that's the one I really remember. And it showed me how special she was, and to be as beautiful as she is, and yet be willing to get down and do what's necessary when it's time, meant a lot to me. And I knew she was a keeper.